Does anybody get surprised when the authorities torture Ugandans? And say it's fake. I have nothing to say to them. All I have to say is to the Ugandans, not to the authorities. They're so drunk on power, they don't listen to nothing.
So what exactly is your plan when you go back?
I'm going to continue the fight for freedom. And it is the fight that we must either win or die trying.
Security forces accused of shooting at least 54 people dead. This is the man to beat, the old man in a hat, they call him. Yoweri Museveni may look grandfatherly, but critics say he's managed 34 years in office by playing tough. Wine poses a new kind of threat.
Young people having somebody who can rally them in the political direction or make this a risky election for President Yoweri Museveni.
Amasiro enkuba ekakuba n'obote takikolangako. Mayiga is worse than Obote. Obote teyakuba ku masiro. Are you serious? Yes, Mayiga is worse than Obote.
The people that murdered Ugandans are known, and this is not the only the only time that it has happened. My driver was murdered by the elite forces who were under the command of General Museveni's son. The people that killed my driver are known. They were not prosecuted. A renowned boxer called Zebra Senyange was killed by Museveni.
The government is struggling to improve its image on human rights. Then you bring a draconian. Two, President Museveni should ask himself, why should the Mukafiri bring a lot to improve Islam?
What makes you think that you stood against a dictatorship when you were our age, but we cannot? So, be true to your word. We are not going to give up. We are not your slaves, and we are not going to be slaves in our own land. So, President Museveni, I'm saying to you, give us liberty or death.
Bobi Wine had called off his campaign after yesterday's chaos, but tonight he's announced he's back in the fray. He's urged the former guerrilla commander he's up against to bow out with dignity, adding, "You don't want to go down like Gaddafi."
Kampala, the Ugandan capital, and an election on full display. Even a candidate sailing along the street, entourage in tow. It looks like any other healthy election, but it's not. That's presidential hopeful Bobi Wine accusing the police of trying to kill him. He says his campaign car came under fire, and not for the first time.
Yesterday, we survived death. The military, after blocking us and after diverting us to a remote road, they followed us and they shot at us.
The musician turned politician has been arrested twice since the start of the campaign, the government accusing him of flouting COVID-19 rules on large gatherings. Wine's second arrest sparked widespread rioting. Security forces accused of shooting at least 54 people dead. This is the man to beat, the old man in a hat, they call him. Yoweri Museveni may look grandfatherly, but critics say he's managed 34 years in office by playing tough. Wine poses a new kind of threat.
Young people having somebody who can rally them in the political direction or make this a risky election for President Yoweri Museveni.
Wine supporters call him the ghetto president, a moniker he wears proudly. He grew up in the slums and wrote songs about it.
I am not a son of a minister. I am not a professor. I am not any high-class citizen. I am here to represent the common people, the ghetto people.
Critics question his ability to transcend cult hero status, but he has bigger hills to climb first, a veil already being drawn across the election campaign.
The outskirts of one of Uganda's best...
We were expelled from the country last week, even with government-issued media credentials. and local journalists covering wine can face both arrest and attack. The fear is there will be more blood on the streets in the days to come. Margaret Evans, CBC News, London.
In Uganda, this is how opposition presidential candidate Bobi Wine's street campaigning often starts. And this is how it ends. In violence and clouds of tear gas. And that's why the pop star and politician, whose real name is Robert Kyagulanyi, came to the Electoral Commission on Wednesday with a message.
We have tasked them to take charge or resign.
Wine has been on the road campaigning ahead of next month's election, in which he hopes to unseat Yoweri Museveni, one of Africa's longest ruling leaders. He accuses security forces of targeting his campaign, detaining, beating and killing his supporters. On Tuesday, Wine's friend and music producer Daniel Oyorwot, known as Dan Magic, was reportedly hit in the face by a rubber bullet.
Today they attacked us, shot various people in the legs, and producer Dan Magic, who was right next to me, had his face shattered and teeth removed.
The police said supporters of Wine's National Unity Platform party had attacked security personnel and disrupted traffic. They said 3 people, including Oyorwot, had been injured by tear gas fragments as police and the military dispersed the crowds. According to Wine, his head of security was also injured.
We've asked them to prevail over the police and the military, to tell them to keep out of this election, especially the military.
President Museveni said 54 people were killed last month as police and the military quelled riots that erupted after Wine was arrested for alleged violation of lockdown rules. Many in Uganda now fear the violence will only escalate ahead of the January 14 poll.
You cannot kill all of
It looks like a victory parade, but there's a way to go yet. Young Ugandans preemptively dub him the ghetto president. He's their man. Robert Kyagulanyi, aka Bobi Wine, 38-year-old pop star turned politician, and probably, the most popular man in Uganda. But not everyone's happy about that. Among them, President Yoweri Museveni. Bobi Wine's latest release, a collaboration with Jamaican reggae artist Buju Banton, pulls no punches. If it takes a revolution, freedom will have to come. By the ballot or the bullet, let thy will be done. Breakfast in Kampala, Tuesday morning. 5-year-old Subi's dad's had a few scrapes of late.
Are you going to pray for me?
He's reassuring her about the day ahead. As his supporters anoint their chosen one before he hits the campaign trail, he croons in the Luganda language of bombs and tear gas and David and Goliath. So much for the reassurance.
Just a few days ago, the regional police commander of Busoga region, where we are heading today, said to my face that he will shoot me in the head because he's a relative to Museveni. So if you have high-ranking police officers, officers of the law commanding entire districts, promising you death, and they've killed people before, some of our supporters, and nothing has happened to them, what do you expect? So I expect the worst.
The convoy heads east towards the lakeside city of Jinja and straight into Bobi Wine prophecy territory. For the pop star would-be president, performance is everything. But now he's swapped clouds of dry ice for tear gas, adoring fans' arms for armed riot police. His route repeatedly blocked, live rounds fired in the air, rubber bullets directly at people. Bobi Wine's music producer, Dan Magic, is hit in the face by a police baton round. It's knocked out several teeth. This time, Bobi Wine himself has escaped being silenced. The convoy moves on, crossing the Nile, next to Jinja. In a country of 45 million where 80% are under 35 and 2/3 of them unemployed, they're pinning their hopes on their ghetto pop star to end the years of misrule and bring change.
So it is a strongman leadership. It is a disconnection, a generational disconnection. Our rulers who think they are leaders, they don't understand our challenges. Every day it becomes more evident to me that facing a 35-year entrenched military dictatorship is hell.
The convoys reached the outskirts of Jinja. Then this. Live fire rings out as Bobi Wine's vehicle is diverted off to the right. Military now joining armed police. It's pretty clear that for them, the road stops here for Bobi Wine. His tyres are shot out, a bullet hole in the windshield. He's twice been arrested. And this arrest, 2 weeks ago, triggered rioting in Kampala, with scores of people shot dead by police. This campaign still has 6 weeks to run. Bobi Wine was just 4 when Yoweri Museveni marched in from his bush war, having helped unseat Idi Amin and then topple Milton Obote. Back then, he'd promised hope.
Point number 1 on our program is the restoration of democracy.
Now 76, Museveni wants a 6th term. At first, he brought peace after years of turmoil, growth after stagnation. But he has no time for detractors. 15 years back, a plucky British television presenter asked whether he hadn't just become a dictator himself.
How can you be an elected dictator? Who elects you then? I fought for democracy. We had no democracy here.
But Museveni didn't come to power through the ballot box and appears to have no intention of leaving that way.
What I'm telling President Museveni is that, first of all, we respected him. You know, he used to say the same things that I'm saying when he was my age. What makes you think that you stood against a dictatorship when you were our age, but we cannot? So, be true to your word. We are not going to give up. We are not your slaves, and we are not going to be slaves in our own land. So, President Museveni, I'm saying to you, give us liberty or death.
Bobi Wine had called off his campaign after yesterday's chaos, but tonight he's announced he's back in the fray. He's urged the former guerrilla commander he's up against to bow out with dignity, adding, "You don't want to go down like Gaddafi."